Hello Pisces, my name is Keith Haswell and I'm a professional astrologer. It's my pleasure to welcome you to this particular video on your moon phases for January 2015. Now, the purpose and objective of my videos, which now I've done 145 of them, Pisces, is to help you and others like you to become more of who you really are, to help you to understand the nature of reality that you find yourself in and how you can become more of who you really are through the use of the science of astrology. You Pisces are very, very sensitive and very, very psychic. There's a terrific sense of duality there in your nature. The symbol of Pisces are the two fish bound together, and one side of the equation wants to just swim with the tide and allow yourself to float with the rest of humanity. The other side of you wants to swim up against stream and to find your way home, to find your way to the divine. So there's an aspect of your nature there, Pisces, which wants to become more of who you really are and to aspire to learn more about the nature of reality and your place in that reality and how you can sidle up to the divine in whatever way that you imagine the divine to be. So there's that side of yourself, but there's another side of yourself which is like a polar opposite that wants to pull you into negativity. It wants to use that imaginative faculty that you have to drag you down and to use your imagination to your own detriment, to think that you're no good, to think that you don't belong, to think that you'll never amount to anything, and to allow yourself to wallow in self-pity and fear and anxiety and doubt and low self-esteem and things like that. So we all have these dualities there within our nature, so don't think that you're just unique in that respect. But I want to help you to understand the moon phases that you'll be experiencing in January 2015. Now, the moon is known to be a fecundating agent. In other words, it is the timing of seeds ripening and coming out of the ground as a tree or a plant of some description. And the moon also precipitates events in our life. Now, the moon moves very rapidly, Pisces, through the houses of your horoscope. It only takes 2.5 days to go through a house of your horoscope, so it takes only 28 days to go through all 12 of your houses of the horoscope. But its relationship to the sun is very, very important, because its relationship to the sun, when it gets into a conjunction with the sun, it's what's called a new moon. And that's a very good time for commencing and starting new projects and ideas. And that gives you 2 weeks until the moon gets into an opposite position to the sun, which is called a full moon. And then that's a period where you've got to consolidate that which you've commenced and started in that 2-week period of the new moon phase. And you've got to consolidate for the next 2 weeks until the next new moon. And that's what I want to talk to you about here, Pisces, is to help you to understand where your full moon is in the month of January and where your new moon is in the month of January. So you just sit back and relax and enjoy the journey with me. I'll look at other things too to help you to understand a little bit about the influences astrologically that you'll be encountering during the month of January. Now, the first phase that we have is the full moon, and that's on the 4th of January, Pisces. Now, these relationships with the sun, because the sun moves 30 degrees per month, it means that the sun is in a different location in relationship to the moon when it forms a full moon or when it forms a new moon. And that falls in a particular house of your horoscope. So the moon has a new moon when it's in a conjunction with the sun, and it falls in a particular house of your horoscope, which is different from Aries and Taurus and Gemini and Cancer. Everybody's got their own particular new moon, and it falls in a particular house that's applicable to you, Pisces. and it's different for other signs. So it's a message, in other words, from the universe for you about a particular house of your horoscope that it wants to emphasize for that particular month. And then the full moon is a time to consolidate that which you've commenced and started in that previous 2 weeks. So the first phase of the moon in January is the 4th of January. The 4th of January sees the full moon fall in 14 degrees Cancer, and that, Pisces, is in your 5th house. So what the message is there is that there's a message to you to do with your 5th house, and the 5th house is the house of romance, love, the social side of life. Now you must remember that these are just generalities that I'm talking about here. To look at your individual horoscope and take into consideration your age is very, very important. For example, if I'm talking about children and you're only 18 years of age and haven't got any children, well then that's not going to be applicable to you. If you're 70 years of age and you're happily married and you're not interested in romance and love, well then romance and love things are not going to be important to you. So you've got to bear in mind that I'm giving here a cross-section of impacts from the moon phases for Pisces during this particular month of January, okay? And it is a generality. Now, so the 4th of January, the 14 degrees Cancer is where the full moon falls, and it falls in your 5th house. Now that means that the 5th house is to do with romance, love, the social side of life, matters relating to children, matters relating to the education of the children, and generally the social side of life and having fun. And it falls in the 5th house of your horoscope as a full moon. Now what that's saying to you, Pisces, is that what you've commenced and started over the previous 2 weeks to the 4th of January is now something that you've got to consolidate for the following 2 weeks. In other words, it's not a good time for you commencing and starting new relationships, commencing and starting new phases in your life of the social side of life and so forth. It's a time of consolidation. Now the next and most important phase that we're coming to now is on the 20th of January, Pisces, and that is the new moon. And the new moon falls in 0 degrees Aquarius. Now that is your 12th house. So that's a message to you about your 12th house impact. So what it means is that the 12th house is to do with introspection, reflection, and thinking about deep things within yourself, to bring about changes within yourself and to aspire towards the divine. It's a time of solitude. It's a time of introspection and transformation and change through that introspection. And when the new moon falls there in your 12th house on the 20th of January, it gives you an opportunity for the next 2 weeks to commence and start new phases in your life, new commencements and starts, in other words, to do with the 12th house. So it's a time for you over the following 2 weeks from the 20th of January, Pisces, to do a lot of deep thinking and reflection and to bring about those changes within yourself, because you've got 2 weeks there to commence and start new phases in your life that are going to take you closer to the divine, closer to the spiritual aspects of yourself. Transformation and change there can be consolidated in the next 2 weeks, and you can commence and start spiritual projects and aspirations towards understanding yourself more and deeply introspecting upon things and taking advantage of solitude from the 20th of January onwards for 2 weeks. Now I also want to look at the movements of Jupiter for you, because this is very important. Jupiter actually goes retrograde in this particular month. And it happens in your horoscope at 23 degrees Leo, Pisces, and that happens in your 6th house. So when Jupiter is retrograde, it means that there's insecurities and secret worries and perhaps bad judgment to do with things to do with the 6th house. So it's not a time for you in the month of January to make changes in your job, for example. It's not a good time for you for thinking negatively about health matters and dietary matters. It's a time for you to really look after yourself health-wise and to stabilise things as far as your health is concerned, because you can have bad judgment, you can be your own worst enemy when Jupiter is retrograde in a particular house of your horoscope. Now, because it's retrograde, it also impacts Pisces upon two other houses of your horoscope, and they are the houses that are ruled by Jupiter. And Jupiter rules, in your case, the first house and the 10th house. So what that means is that you might have bad judgment with regard to, in the month of January, to commencing and starting new projects and ideas, and it's a time when you've got to be cautious and you've got to really think carefully about the wisdom of commencing and starting new projects. And also it's to do with the 10th house, which is your highest ambitions, business and career and high achievements in life. And that is telling you that you've got to be careful with regard to changes in business and plans that you're making with regard to any changes in your career. Think carefully, because you might have bad judgment during that particular retrograde during that month. The last thing I want to look at for you, Pisces, is Saturn. Now, Saturn is sitting in 29 degrees Scorpio and has been there for the last 2.5 years almost. Now, that means that Saturn has been sitting in your 9th house of your horoscope for the last 2 years. So you've experienced a lot of frustrations and difficulties over the last 2 years in expanding yourself to new horizons. You've probably had plans for travel and they've either been obstructed or delayed, or else you've had some sort of disaster connected with travel. And there's been illness of a relative on your spouse's side if you're married, or illness of a relative or death of a relative who lives distantly from you perhaps. There's been frustrations in your ambitions to expand your understanding and to soar to new horizons in your understanding through study, research and investigation. There's been a lot of frustrations over the last 2.5 years. So that's been a difficult time for you, but that's about to end now when Saturn moves into the next sign, and I'll talk more about that when I talk about your moon phases for February. So that just gives you an idea there of some of the influences that are surrounding you, Pisces, during the month of January. Now, you've got the opportunity now, because you've been brought to this particular video, it means that you've been seeking change. You've been seeking change within yourself, and your higher self has actually brought you to this particular video to expose you to an opportunity to make changes within yourself. And to bring about those changes within yourself has brought you to this particular video, okay? Now, you've got an opportunity now to go to my website. The website address has probably popped up by now, and you've got an opportunity, write that down and go to my website, and there's various things on offer there at my website. I'm not trying to sell you anything, I'm trying to give you something, give you a gift. There's 12 CDs there out of my first book, What Really Matters, on astrology, meditation and reincarnation, Pisces, and you can download the first one of those CDs from the website, and you can then listen to that and see if it makes any sense to you. If it makes some sense to you, well, then you go on with the job and you download number 2 and listen to that and see what you think of that. And that gives you an opportunity to expand your understanding about the nature of reality and your place in that reality. And also, from time to time, I do what's called a free horoscope number 1. And that free horoscope number 1 is a beautiful 7-page printout that is to do with you. And it tells you all about you from your planetary placements, from your horoscope, not just a generality to do with your sun sign or your rising sign. It's to do with the location of the moon which rules your emotions, Mercury which rules your mind, Venus which rules your love nature, and Mars which rules your energy levels. And these planets are individual in your horoscope at the time of your birth. So this is based on your birth chart, not just a generality to do with your sun sign or your rising sign, okay? So I'm prepared to do that for you free of charge. Horoscope number 1, but I can't promise that it's always going to be available through the website, because sometimes I have 40 orders in one day, so there's 40 charts that I've got to do, and then I've got to do those 7-page analyses of those 40 charts, and that's a lot of work involved in it for me, so I can't guarantee that that's always going to be available there from the website. But there's other stuff available from my website that you can have a browse around, see what you think, but get that free stuff there and listen to that first CD, see what you think of that. And that's your higher self communicating with you and telling you something that it wants you to understand at this point in your life, because you are now ready to make some changes inside of yourself. And subscribe to my videos, because I'm putting out videos all the time, and I'll probably put out 150 odd videos in 2015, so you want to be able to get your hands on them. They cover all aspects of personal and spiritual growth. So it's nice to have this opportunity to be able to talk with you, and you've now got the opportunity to take a step forward and to expand your understanding about where you stand and where you're going from here on. Forget about the past, that's all gone, okay? Now focus upon where you're heading. That's more important about where you're heading. It's more important about your future and not the past. It's more important about who you are becoming and not who you've been. It's more important about where you are going and not where you've been. Okay, so it's nice to talk with you, Pisces, and I look forward to working further with you should you decide to visit my website and go on with the job, eh? Thank you.